Good morning, everyone. I am uploading twice this week because I'm holding myself accountable for the fact that I didn't upload on time last week. So my last episode, which was the gift ideas episode, that came out on Tuesday, but I'm supposed to be uploading on Sunday or Monday. So you get a freebie episode. And before we get into it, Hello Buffalo. So my high for this week is something that was really unexpected. I usually call my dad first, but this time my dad called me, and he's not going to call me unless he has some kind of reason. He was like, "Oh, do you like art, Annie?" And that was really weird because I remember talking to him about going to the MoMA by myself. And he started judging me and attacking me for going there by myself. And he was saying how he would never spend money on art and he doesn't care about it and he doesn't get it. And I got offended after that call because I was like, it's not making your life worse or affecting you, the fact that I like art. But he still decided to attack me anyways. So this time he called me and was like, "You like art, Annie, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like art." And he went into this whole thing. So I had basically a 2-hour call with my dad yesterday where he was saying how he truly believes that I can do art and he thinks that I should pursue it. And he said that if I take it one step at a time, that in the long run, he genuinely thinks that I can make it big. And he said that life's too short and it's not always about the money. He noticed that, you know, every single person has this thing about them that makes them unique and that is special about them. And he was saying, like, you need to find that thing that makes you, like that thing that makes you beautiful, not in a physical way, but internally, what makes you different than other people and makes you stand out. And then you should pursue that thing. And he was like, I know you might not know yourself well enough and it might not be very clear, but I think you deep down, you know what that thing is. And I was so confused. Like, I was questioning my dad. I was like, where did this come from? Like, why all of a sudden are you saying these things? Like, I've never thought in a million years that you would ever say something like this to me. It was just so odd. And it like made me like cry when I was walking because I was like, what is this? Like, I don't even, yeah. But it was a really nice high. It was a really cool conversation to have. And on the other side, which is my low, I had really low lows. I'm just trying to say how I feel. I'm not trying to manifest what I'm about to say. But if you have ever watched Beef, it's a TV show that's on Netflix right now. And a lot of like shit happens in it. And it's like crazy. And I feel like my life has been very similar to that show. I'm not saying it's going to be that way in the future. And I have faith that it does get better. Okay, I genuinely don't know if manifestation is something that actually exists or actually works, but I don't want to take any bets, so I'm going to be very careful. So a few things, I'll just touch on it really quickly, but this past weekend on Friday night, like 8 p.m. when I was hanging out with my friends, I got a work message saying that there was assignments due on Sunday and there was a work meeting scheduled for Sunday. So I was working while I was eating lunch on a Sunday. I was pissed off. And then on top of that, I got some emails from some managers that were really out of pocket, were targeted and assumed the worst out of me. Like, no one in those messages tried to understand where I was coming from or tried to give me the benefit of the doubt. Instead, they first went to the assumption and the conclusion that I had bad intentions. I don't want to say like any specifics because I'm nervous about who really listens to my podcast, but it really got to me. And I know I'm not supposed to take things personally, but it's easier said than done. And I let it get to me, and it's like, it's not even just one thing, it's been multiple messages and multiple managers. So it's been really tough to get through that, to be honest, and I'm still recovering from it. And finally, my buffalo. So I had a friend from home visit me, Angela, and it was so fun hanging out with her. And one of the cool things that we did was we went to Brooklyn, and it was pouring so bad that day. But somehow we found like a bunch of umbrellas that were just laying around. We thought that they were broken, but every single time we saw these umbrellas, we would test them out and they were fine. And people just left them. Like we saw one on the sidewalk just randomly sitting there, and they were nice umbrellas. And it was just so weird. We found like 4, I think. Okay, so for the second podcast episode of this week, I'm going to go over some green flags. So I've done some red flags in the past, and that one's a really fun episode. You should definitely listen to that. I wanted to do the opposite, which is green flags, but not just any green flags, but really subtle green flags or little things that you can notice in somebody that can tell you a lot about them and whether or not they're a good person. This will make a lot more sense. I'm not explaining it the best, but you'll see. Okay, so the first is if they put the toilet seat down. So we've had some guys that visited in our apartment or stayed over at our apartment, and when they put the toilet seat up, it tells us a lot about the person. It tells us that they didn't grow up with sisters, they don't have good manners sometimes, etc., etc. And it's pretty gross when guys leave up the toilet seat. So it can tell you a lot about their hygiene. And I feel like when you grow up with sisters, especially an older sister, it teaches you a lot. I think guys with older sisters are raised to be better and are much more proper, and they know how to treat women because usually the older sister sets them straight. Another green flag is whether you're eating in a group or just one-on-one with the other person, if they fill your water or serve you food on your plate. It shows that they're very considerate and they're paying attention, and this is a very Asian thing. In our culture, we serve the older people first, and it's a form of respect and it's a form of care. I think everything around food in the Asian community and kind of providing food for other people, it's really how you show your love. In this case, I really like it when people around me or guys will notice that I need more water and they'll offer it. And I know it's so subtle, but it tells you a lot. Other green flags to notice is if they're persistent on paying the bill. So I did this on my Hinge dates. It's like something I do to just like test out what kind of person they are. And that makes me kind of sound psycho, but I don't know. Maybe not. At the end of the date, I would offer to pay. And I know it's assumed in society that the guy should pay, but after they try to offer to pay whatever, I would offer to pay. And I want to see how persistent they are. And I had some dates where I would say, let's split, or let me help pay for the bill. And they would be like, okay. And then there's other people who are like, no, I really got it. And they're like more persistent. And I think the more persistent that they are, I think the more attractive it is. Because I think at the end of the day, society puts a lot of pressures on guys to do these things. And one of the things is to pay for the bill, especially on the first date. But some guys don't understand why they have to pay for the bill, and instead they pay for it just because the world tells them they have to. But then there's certain people that get it and they understand why they should pay for the meal. And then to like filter out the people that get it and are just kind of conforming to society's rules, that's why I offered to pay for the bill and see what they do. Other green flags are if they're a good dancer. I think a good dancer, this is so, like, you don't need to have all these green flags or any of them. It's a little thing that is more than what it is on the surface. So like dancers, they typically are way more smoother and they're just way cooler. I don't know. There's something about their movement and the way that they carry themselves physically that is really attractive. I feel like good dancers seem more confident body-wise, and yeah, smooth is the best way for me to describe it. Also, good shoe game. This is kind of weird, but whenever I'm looking through people's Hinge profiles, like I'll check on their shoes. I want to see like the type of shoes that they wear with their outfits, and it tells me a ton about the person. The lifestyle choices that you make usually go along with your shoe choice. Like if you wear hiking shoes and like runner shoes, I can tell that you're most likely very much an outdoorsy person. If I look at your shoes and you're wearing a lot more like street fashion, trendy shoes, I can tell that that person's into fashion and they have a good eye for like clothing and art and culture. So that's something I do check for whenever I'm interested in somebody or considering whether or not I'm interested in someone. Another thing that I really like that guys, girls, whatever sex do is when they ask more questions about yourself. I like when people ask more questions after you tell them a story or talk about a certain topic so that it seems like they're interested, especially when the questions are really good. You can tell that only from that question that they were listening, and normally somebody who isn't listening couldn't ask that type of question. And when people do this, I can tell that they are really invested and they're not that self-centered. Also, when other people notice little changes in your looks, so let's say you cut your hair, you maybe use a different lipstick that day, and those like little subtle comments, it's really sweet because I think at the end of the day, we all care about how we look and about ourselves more than anyone else does. So when you do these little things, usually I feel like I'm the only one that notices the little things that I do. But whenever anyone points it out, it's like really touching. And you can also tell that they are very observant and not self-centered, like I said, and they probably have good emotional and social awareness. Another nice thing to look for is whether or not the other person holds the door open for other people. That one's pretty self-explanatory. This one's a pretty major green flag for me. Well, not only green flag, but this is usually the only way I'll find somebody attractive. I really like it when people have a way of consistently staying active. So it doesn't matter what the activity is, gymming, playing a sport, dancing, whatever it is, an active component in their life that they consistently do. I find that really attractive because it just shows that they take care of themselves, they look out for their health, and usually that means physically, body-wise, I'll be more attracted to them. I also really like to check for people's social media and seeing whether or not other people, their friends, are commenting often on their photos. Because what I've noticed in general is that people who have friends, family, whatever, commenting on their photos often, it tells me that they're really close to their friend group and they have like a really solid social community, and that people just generally like them enough to, put themselves out there in a comment. And it's really fun when I can also see them commenting back and seeing how they interact with their friends. It tells me a lot about them. I mean, there's no like number or thresholds or anything like that. Just like seeing that people are interacting with their photos and it's not just likes, I find that a green flag. Another subtle thing to notice is whether or not the person makes a reservation on the first date. They are putting in the effort, and it's just another thoughtful thing. And it shows that most likely when you guys are dating, if you guys do date, that they are willing to put in the effort to also plan and organize things so that it's not very one-sided. Again, if somebody doesn't do this, it doesn't mean that they're problematic or that they're not going to be a good fit or they're not a good person. It's just another nice to have. This one's setting the bar super low. But if they have a friend group, I think if people have a solid group of friends or a solid person to hang out with, and they seem sociable with that group, I think that's a good sign that they're emotionally and socially mature than somebody who doesn't. I also think this is super important because not every couple is going to be super happy and all rainbows and unicorns the entire time in the relationship. And if you only have the person that you're dating to rely on to support you emotionally, like what do you do when you guys get into a fight? I feel like it's really important. I'm really grateful that I have people outside of a relationship, if I were to get into one, to talk to and just to have a shoulder to cry on. And I feel like that keeps me sane. So if someone doesn't have that person or that group to go to, I'm like, you might have some like emotional trauma and baggage that I don't want to deal with. I also really like it when people walk on the right side of the street. So if you're walking on the sidewalk, sometimes you have the building side and then you have the street side where all the cars are. I have some friends that will walk on the side where the cars are to kind of protect you, quote unquote. It's just a really subtle and sweet thing. And I noticed it when like some of my friends started doing it and I was like, whoa, like I've never had friends that did that before. And I only really met friends like that when I was here in New York, but also I don't often walk in LA or other areas because I'm mostly in the car. So I guess it's more noticeable here. Another green flag is when other people send you things that remind them of you. I do this all the time with my friends, and my friends do it back, which is so fun. But we DM each other different reels. We'll send each other links, places that we feel like the other person would really like. And I love it because it just means that other people are thinking of you and they know you well enough to know what you could possibly like. And it also tells me that the other people care about me enough that they want me to experience something that I would like. Another green flag that I've also noticed is when people compliment their same-sex friends. If they're not afraid to like compliment. I think I've talked about this before. I think guys are really good at doing this. At least my guy friends, where they're just so open about complimenting their guy friends, whether it is like the fade in their hair or shaving, whatever it is. It's so funny and sweet. And I think it's just a huge green flag. I also find it nice when people remember or bring up something small that you've brought up in the past. As you talk more and more with people, a lot of different topics can come up, and it's really easy to forget about different things that you've talked about in the past with other people or little facts about them. So when people do remember these things, it's like surprising to me. And I also know personally how hard it is to remember little things like that. So when people do bring things up, it's really sweet. And finally, this one's very much just a guy-related thing, but I really like it when guys are open to doing more quote-unquote feminine, girly things, painting their nails or putting makeup on their face or wearing skirts, like things like that. I think when they're open to it and they're not like shutting it down right away, that just shows like they don't have toxic masculinity or insecurities with masculinity and like coming off very tough and strong and like whatever those traits are for how quote unquote men should be. So I really like it when they're very open to it. It's actually a red flag for me in this case if they are very against those things. So this is the pretty comprehensive list of small, nice to have green flags that you can notice in another person to tell you a lot about the other person. Hopefully you guys use some of these things or pick up on some of these things whenever you're on a date or meeting someone for the first time. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys on Sunday or Monday.